serve braisy stuff, I love to serve something mushy and squishy to go with it. It makes me feel very homey and very comforting. So one of my favorite things to serve is a combo of celery root and potatoes. You know, we all know mashed potatoes, but celery root, what is it? Well, it always makes me feel very happy because it makes me think of my mom. It's one of her favorite vegetables, and actually I gave her a whole bunch one year for Christmas. Under the Christmas tree, it was like she won the lottery. So I'm getting my potatoes rocking. And let's talk celery root. What is this big crazy thing sitting next to me? It is kind of very starchy like a potato. It's very craggy, but it smells like celery. Very interesting. And what's nice about this is that it's big, so a little bit goes a long way. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna cut off the top and the bottom, and right around the sides. We're gonna cut them the same size as my potatoes. We're gonna get my potatoes cooking, boiling up, clearly with plenty of salt. We're gonna get those going, BTB, and then we're gonna add my celery root, and we're gonna finish the whole thing just like we do any other mashed potato, but really with an interesting twist. Let's give my potatoes and celery root a little poke here. I'm checking to see that they're fork tender. Smells beautiful. It's amazing how much that celery root really smells. So I poke in and out with a fork, and if my fork goes in and out easily, I know these bad boys are ready. So let's drain them. All right, we're gonna let all that water drain out. I've got some cream heating up because I'm gonna treat these exactly the same way I treat mashed potatoes. They're just a much more interesting flavor. I'm gonna have some cold butter, hot cream, and I'm gonna pass the whole shooting match through my food mill. This is my favorite piece of kitchen equipment. I love it because I can just hook it on the side of my pot there and right into my pot. And it's all about good old-fashioned elbow grease. I use this all the time in the restaurant for this exact reason, or for things like passing tomatoes through. Applesauce works beautifully in this. Anything that we want to pass, but leave the skins or the seeds up top. This is exactly why I saved myself a little time in the beginning and didn't peel my potatoes. So I'm gonna go ahead and rock these out, whip in my cream and my butter. All right, I'm just finishing my puree here, scraping off the bottom. We want to make sure we don't miss any of the big money item on my food mill. So we are all about cold butter and hot cream, and then we whip it together. So hot cream, cold butter, here we go. And we do this gradually, and then we just whip it out. Oh, looking beautiful, and it's smelling so much like celery. All right, how about one more butter and one more cream? We're gonna taste this guy. So right in the center of that plate, this is gonna glue my short ribs in place, and it's going to stay hot the longest. Remember, we like all this hot. Oh my God, look at that. Yeah. Yeah, right in the center there. Look at that. My celery root and potato puree acts like the glue that holds everybody together. It's lovely and smooth because I passed it through my food mill. Oh, is that spectacularly beautiful? It looks brown. It smells brown. This is like the perfect wintertime cold weather comfort food dinner. I can't wait to get in there and try it. Oh, it's coming right off the bone. Yeah. Oh, exactly how I knew that would be. Remember, you don't have to be a restaurant chef to cook like one.
That's great. And now it's time to work on my mashed potatoes. So I've got this great big cast iron skillet over here. I'm gonna add a little bit of canola oil right there, and I'm gonna add these spices that really make this an east side potato. On the east coast of India, they love combining fennel, brown mustard seeds, and cumin. So the brown mustard's a little nutty, so the cumin's a little smoky with a little bite, and the fennel is a little licoricey. When they hit the oil, they should sizzle and splutter and jump like that. You know your oil is hot enough. And I'm gonna add the onions to the pan too. And I just wanna saute them. I love mashed potatoes, and I thought, what a nice way to enjoy a mashed potato, but a little bit different, you know, with a little more character, more backbone. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of salt to these, draw out some of that moisture, and all you need to do is just soften it, saute it, so I can turn my attention to the potatoes. I cubed them, put them in cold water, brought them to a boil, and then let them simmer for about 20-30 minutes until they were fork tender. Here's how you know it's fork tender. The fork goes in and out really easily. So it's time to drain them in a colander at the sink. And then to mash them, I'm actually going to use a food mill, or you can use a ricer. So it gets this nice light texture as opposed to kind of the stodgier one if you just use a potato masher. That goes there. And here comes my food mill. Scrape off the bottom so you don't waste any. So for a little richness, I'm going to add some butter. Just a little. It's going to help it brown in the pan as well. Oh, just love a good mashed potato, don't you? And I like that this is a slightly different take on a mashed potato. So my onions are softened over here, picked up a little color. It smells so good and sweet. Potatoes and onions. Pretty humble, but so good. A collision of worlds in this kitchen. A little bit of India, a little bit of everywhere else. I'm trying to get these nice crispy bits all through this mashed potato. Such a pleasing texture. Oh, I'm so excited. So I'm just going to flatten these potatoes out, let them develop a little bit of a crust, then stir them up again, flatten them out, let them develop a crust, keep that going for a few minutes. When I come back, I'm going to make this gorgeous apple cider vanilla black pepper gravy to go all over the pork and these potatoes, and it's time to eat, so come on back. Because look at how lovely they've crisped up in the pan, kind of smoky, nutty, and they look fantastic. A little onion in there, those are completely ready to go. So would you like to eat? I think I would. Let's slice up this pork loin. So this end can come off, and look, isn't this beautiful? Caramelized, so tender. I'm not pushing with my knife at all, and you can see how juicy it is inside. You are gonna be the star chef. Come over here. I'm gonna put some potatoes down on the plate. Some delicious apples and celery root. And then a few slices of pork. Right there. And perhaps a little gravy right on top. Right there. Oh. Delicious looking. It smells fantastic in here. Hit it with a little parsley for some color. And that is a very festive plate, don't you think?
What I'm going to make is sour cream mashed potatoes. I peeled them and cut them in big chunks and put them in salted boiling water for maybe about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is heat up a little bit of milk and butter. 1.5 cups of milk, 6 tablespoons of butter, and meanwhile, I'm going to get the potatoes pureed. So this is called a food mill. You can really find it in a hardware store or any kind of a cookware store. And it's not very expensive. So I'm just going to put the potatoes in. I'll show you how this food mill works. Ooh, these are hot. So you just turn the blade, and you have to turn it backwards just to clean the blade, and then turn it again. See how light and fluffy it is at the bottom? You can use any kind of boiling potatoes, but Yukon Gold, which are a little yellow, which these are the best ones. Done. Okay, I'm just going to whisk this into the potatoes. Just do it slowly, don't do all of it at once. want to make sure that you have enough so that it's creamy, but not so much that it's soupy. You don't want potato soup. Okay, now for a little depth of flavor, about a half a cup of sour cream. 2 teaspoons of salt. And about a half a teaspoon of pepper. These are really good. Michael's going to be a very happy camper.
Normally when I make Cajun surf and turf, I'll serve pasta with it, but I am definitely in meat and potatoes territory with my father-in-law's birthday dinner. So I'm gonna make Cajun mashed potatoes instead. I've got 5 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes, and I'm just adding them to a pot of water. Now, I know this looks like a heck of a lot of potatoes, but I speak from experience when I say they will probably all be gone. Okay, now I'm just gonna turn on the water, let this boil for about 20 to 25 minutes until the potatoes are tender. Now I need to test the potatoes. Oh, they're really tender. I'll turn off the heat. I'll get these drained so then I can mash them up. Usually I just use regular russets when I mash potatoes, but I love the color of these. Okay, now I'll get these back on the stovetop. And when I mash potatoes, I like to turn the heat on low and mash them before I add anything to them. This gives them a chance to release a lot of the steam and a lot of the liquid, and then the consistency of the mashed potatoes will be even more perfect. Okay, these are really nice and smooth. I want to make sure to get all the lumps out. Okay, they look great. Now I'll add all the good stuff. I've got 2 sticks of softened butter. I love using butter that's really, really soft because then when you drop it in, it melts almost instantly. And then my secret ingredient for mashed potatoes, I always put in a block of cream cheese. It's nice and soft too. I'll break it up as I put it in. I tell you, once you've put cream cheese in your mashed potatoes, there is no going back. I'll drizzle in some half and half. I always say, gosh, I just can't imagine why these mashed potatoes are so delicious. Butter, cream cheese, half and half. It's not too hard to figure out. Now I have the same Cajun spice mix that I used for the tenderloin, and I'll just sprinkle in some of that. And that's basically the big difference between regular mashed potatoes and Cajun mashed potatoes. These have Cajun spice. Okay, now I'll just keep on mashing. Let the ingredients mix into the potatoes. I didn't want to go overboard on the Cajun spice. I don't want these to depart too much from the mashed potatoes the guys are used to. Okay, these look absolutely perfect. So I'll just turn off the heat, pop the lid on, and they'll stay warm till dinner time.
Creamy garlic red Bliss mash. 4 cloves of skin off garlic go right in with our red Bliss potatoes. And we're gonna throw on cold water and then bring it up to temp, which is real important when you're doing mashed potatoes and you're boiling the potatoes. You don't wanna shock them. You start them in cold water, they're all gonna eat or heat properly. You see how hungry I am? I'm saying eat. Shout out to Freud. All right, so I'm gonna bring that up to a boil. Put the salt in after it comes to a boil because salting before can hinder the boiling. You know that your red Bliss potatoes are ready to go for your mash when you stick the fork in and it comes right off, which it did just now. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and drain it. Remember, we boiled these potatoes with 4 cloves of garlic, water. We brought it up to a boil, and then we dropped in some salt. I mean, this is gonna be really good garlic mash because the water it boiled in, garlic water. All right, so I'm gonna put it right back into the same pot we boiled it in. Garlic clove pieces and all, do not lose the flavor. And then we're gonna leave the heat on just a little bit. So all of the moisture that's on the skin of our red Bliss potatoes is gonna kind of just evaporate. All right, so get my masher out. I'm gonna go ahead and add in some heavy cream, room temp, so it doesn't bring down the temperature of the potatoes we just boiled. I'm gonna turn off my heat. Gonna add some butter. These are gonna be creamy. And the way I like my mashed potatoes is a little chunky. You know, if you're doing it for yourself, of course, make it like you want to. But if you have friends come over, I always do the, how do you like yours, chunky or creamy? So I don't want someone leaving saying, I don't know, her mashed potatoes were too chunky. I like it chunky. All right, and don't be shy with the salt either. You can really add a lot of salt to potatoes before you really start to taste it. All right, so everything is in the pot. I'm gonna go ahead and mash away. All right, I might wanna check those before I'm done with my mash. Put a little elbow grease into this. This is gonna be really good. I love leaving the skin on as well. Add some texture, a little bit of color. You know what? I eyeballed the heavy cream pretty good. All done there. All I'm gonna have to do is probably give it a taste and see if I wanna throw a little bit more salt and pepper in. All right, so let's see about some of this garlic mash. Remember, our Red Bliss potatoes. Oh man, we boiled them in water with garlic cloves, hit them with some salt, butter, heavy cream, and you're done. I'm gonna taste my potatoes. Garlic. Wow.
I'm doing a mashup for my pimento cheese mashed potatoes. I'm making my grandpa's pimento cheese, and I'm using Pam Morrow's mashed potato recipe.
She is going to be tickled pink.
The bomb mashed potatoes.
Y'all, years ago, Jeff made his mom's mashed potatoes, and let me tell you, I thought that my grandma made the best mashed potatoes, and she did make the best mashed potatoes. But Pam Morrow's mashed potatoes, let me tell you something, and they're make ahead, okay? Which that did not exist.
No.
So we're gonna get started first with the pimento cheese. I've already cooked the potatoes over here. Jeffrey, I've got him on, guess what? Garnish duty.
Yes.
Right.
He's chopping up some chives and parsley for me. All right, so into the food processor. I'm using sharp cheddar cheese for this. You can use very sharp cheddar cheese, extra sharp, whatever you like. And then I'm gonna add to it some jarred pimentos.
Yep, need
So
that.
pimento cheese was my grandpa's specialty. He made the best pimento cheese. He actually would hook up an old-fashioned meat grinder to the counter and put the block of cheese in it and grind it up.
Cool.
It
By
was
the way,
so
I
good.
know
Mayonnaise.
you feel sentimental, but pimento cheese started, didn't actually start in the South,
Where did it start?
in New York.
You
I don't
liar.
believe it. Nah,
Well,
no.
I like
added some mayonnaise.
I added mayonnaise, some pickle relish, salt and pepper, and a couple drops of your favorite hot sauce. That's optional, but I think it needs a little bit of a
Yeah.
zing there.
Yeah, pickled relish.
Wait, so there's no cream cheese in pimento cheese,
I
no?
don't do cream cheese. Some people do.
yeah.
Everybody's got their own.
It's regional,
I
probably.
very often like to use the processed cheese that comes in the rectangular package. I think that
Nothing wrong
makes
with
a
that.
good pimento cheese. All
Why
right.
no cream cheese? You don't like the tang in there?
I just don't do it. It wasn't how Grandpa did it, so it's not how I do mine.
This is amazing.
So Jeff's mom puts cream cheese in her mashed
Yeah.
potatoes. So in place of the cream cheese, I'm using the pimento cheese. So this is just my little substitution. You know, you could
love it.
probably do both. And I'm adding it to a stick of butter.
This is crazy.
And I'm gonna save some of my pimento cheese as a topper to my mashed
Katie,
potatoes.
the land of the cow salads,
Hey,
garbanzo
it's
beans.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there's-
I'm gonna add some grated garlic. All right, now we're gonna go in and mash this together. Get it nice and mixed.
Crazy. And
Make it
do we
appear.
really need to butter the 13 by 9? It's
Yeah, you don't want it to stick.
It's Thanksgiving.
I can't wait to try this.
I remember being a kid, and when it was time to mash potatoes, it was always at the very last minute. My grandma would make like 10 pounds of potatoes. And no matter how much she made, we still managed to eat all the mashed potatoes.
Yeah, they're like that, you know?
Yeah, all right, so this little butter pimento cheese mixture is going in. All right, now I'm gonna add in a little bit of hot half and half.
Yeah, you show restraint. I love that you're not
Half
doing
and half,
full
not heavy cream.
Could you use
Hey,
yogurt
Pam uses half and half.
or almond
Pam
milk?
uses half and half. It's
No.
always in the fridge.
Oh,
Almond milk? What the heck are you
dare
talking
you.
about? All right, and you don't want to over-mix them because then you start to get that wallpaper paste thing going. But there's so much fat in here that you can kind of have at it. All right, these are looking good. So you can do this a day or two in advance. Put it in the fridge. All right, so I've buttered a 9 by 13. And now look at these. Look at that rich color
Oh,
from the pimento
Wow.
cheese. I'm gonna put it into
Blushing.
this baking dish.
It looks like sherbet.
It kind of does, doesn't
Sherbet.
it? So now I'm gonna spread this in our casserole
So
dish.
it looks so light.
It does.
It actually does.
Looks can be
Look at how it
deceiving.
spreads. Listen, this is fun, you know,
right.
because
Now
A lot of
melted
times-
butter.
You just deal with your own family recipes. We're literally going around the country and catching all these different flavors.
very cool.
I appreciate
Melted
it.
butter's going on to seep into those potatoes. Now I'm gonna put the rest of the cheese on top. Look at this, how beautiful that is.
Pimento is delicious.
It is.
Great.
Pickled.
And it adds a little pickled note to this because there is a lot of fat going on between the cheese and the mayonnaise and the
Look at that.
butter
Look
and
at
the
that.
half and half. So that little pickly moment
It's like a ball.
really gives you something. Okay, so you could wrap this in some aluminum foil, put it in the fridge, and then just bake it a couple days later. But we're putting it straight in, 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Here we go.
In the
I've got one
I just seen it.
already done.
I seen it.
I looked ahead on the test.
I did. I'm so sorry.
Oh boy.
Be careful.
Girl.
Oh, man. Wow.
How about it? How about it? Fromage potatoes.
Thank God
Okay,
for a little
yeah.
fresh herb
Yeah,
on top of this.
little fresh herb. God
Talk
is good,
about
God
irony.
is great. Past them taters, it's getting late. All right, now we're gonna add the chives.
Gotta have chives. I mean, they make it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
It's almost like twice baked potato. Twice
Yeah.
baked potato. I'm getting
She
really
getting
into
real
my
good.
West
They-
Virginia.
West Virginia
Oh
on us.
my gosh, guys. Okay.
Isn't it like that though when you go home to visit? You
Yes.
come back with your accent again a little bit.
Oh,
Yes.
always.
Oh, my
Oh, mama.
I've lived in New York for 19 years. I think my accent's only gotten thicker.
Oh my
Not as thick as these potatoes.
Trust. If you weren't
Not as thick
watching,
as you'll feel after eating
this
them.
whole thing would be in my mouth. Just one
No, it's
big.
too hot. You know it's too hot.
Is it hot?
Thermal capacity of
It
this
is a little hot.
outrageous.
Okay.
I gotta move my steering
Jeff, you have to try it and tell me what
All I
Pam
can say
would
is
think.
it's with this
that
top.
with the gravy that you make.
Oh, no.
What do we think?
I think it's
Katie.
excellent.
I was a believer from the jump. Pimento cheese is my alley, man. I love it. And you add cheese to anything, it just ups the ante. But you didn't just add any cheese, you added fortified cheese, okay? And that's what pimento cheese is. It comes with lots of flavor. I even taste that. It was a little bit of garlic for such a big casserole, but it's talking to me.
Oh, wow.
This is delicious. I love a recipe that you like so much you want to go home and play with it, which is exactly what you did with his mom's mashed potatoes, your papa's pimento cheese. Wonder Twins activate. It's so good. Can I say this in my southern accent, honey?
Please, please.
I'll never tell you bless your heart.
So the first thing I need for the puree is 2 cups of basil leaves. What I'm going to do is blanch them in hot water, and what that does is really set the green color, so it's fresh green basil in the potato basil puree. So I need a big pot of boiling salted water. What I'm going to do is use the same water for the basil as I am for the potatoes. So 2 cups of fresh basil leaves, right into the water. And it's going to sit there for about 15 seconds, just until it's blanched. And then into ice water, which is called shocking, and it really sets the green color. Okay, right into the ice water, which is why you want to have the ice water ready before you start. Okay, next, the potatoes. So I've got 2 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes. They're peeled in maybe about 1.5-inch dice. And those are going to cook for about 20 to 25 minutes. And while they cook, little home movies. I'm going to show you where I got the inspiration for these potatoes. It's the Bistro de Puree. It's near the Seine, and it's the real thing. Old school Parisian bistro with incredible charm. If you order veal chops in a place like this, you are definitely having potato puree alongside. So, drain potatoes, put the lid on. So the next thing I'm going to do is heat up some half and half. I've got 1 cup just to a simmer. I'm going to add 3/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. It's really important not to let the cream boil though, because Parmesan will end up a mess. Okay, next I'm going to puree the basil in the food processor. Just strain it really well. Ooh, that's cold. So I'm just going to put this in, and then I'm going to put the cream in and puree them together. It's hot but not boiling. So this is the mixture that's going to go into the potatoes. So just give it a whir. So now I'm going to show you how I make mashed potatoes, actually in the pot. And I'm just going to break them up a little bit and then turn it on. And it makes the most fabulous mashed potatoes. Light and fluffy. Okay, so these are perfectly broken up. So just very slowly add enough basil cream so the mashed potatoes are the right texture. I always save a little bit for later, just in case they get too thick. Okay. 2 teaspoons of salt. 1 teaspoon of pepper. Just mix that all in. Oh, this smells good. It's a tough job I have. Oh, it's smooth and creamy. And the basil is, it's just delicious. You can really taste the Parmesan. This potato basil puree smells so amazing. I'm just gonna give it a whisk. It's just the right texture. You can really smell the Parmesan and all the basil. Wow. A little sprinkling of Parmesan on top. Could it look any better?
I'm making mashed potatoes for the lamb. All right, so I've got some Yukon Gold potatoes. All right, a little bit of hot cream and butter mixed together. Right. And I basically kind of put them through a ricer. You want to grab that piece of that machine back there? Rices are really cool. I like having these things around because they make beautiful, well, they don't make a mess. They make beautiful lump-free mashed potatoes and really, really nice and creamy. They're perfect, actually.
Okay. They really are.
Do you have one of those?
No.
You can have that.
It.
You can have that one.
Sweet.
Yeah. you get prizes on the show,
okay,
right?
See?
That looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm seasoning salt, pepper, and I think a little bit of chive will be really nice with that too. Go great with the lamb. Okay, pepper mill, it's for you.
Sweet.
That's right.
All right.
Right, cool, perfect. All right, a little bit of olive oil. And then I'm gonna mince up some chive. Okay, I'll slide this stuff over. It's cool. And you guys see this lamb. Can you smell the lamb?
I can really smell it. I'm excited.
It's awesome.
I'm not sharing.
You got a big appetite, girl. All right, so I think some fresh chive now adds a little bit of color, right? Also kind of nice little oniony bite and good flavor.
Did you peel the potatoes?
I did peel the potatoes. I peeled the potatoes and simmer them in a little bit of water. And when I make mashed potatoes, I always start off with cold water when I bring them up. Yeah, because they kind of cook evenly, slowly and consistent all the way through. Always start your potatoes off in cold water, and they get really nice. Because sometimes when you make mashed potatoes, some are overcooked, right? Some are undercooked, whatever. That's how you prevent lumps. Start off with cold water, a little bit of salt, and they're awesome.
Good to know.
Exactly right. So stir us together. Do you like mashed potatoes?
I love mashed potatoes.
Taste these.
Can I do that?
How was that? That was good, huh?
Those are way good.
Really, really good.
I'm Valerie Bertinelli, and I'm sharing recipes that will transform your Thanksgiving leftovers. Like this leftover mashed potato soup with corn and poblanos. It's warming, it's creamy, it's comforting, it's perfect on a chilly winter night. The poblano peppers, they add just a hint of heat, and because the potatoes basically melt into the broth, the corn, onions, and celery, they really give it a nice texture and a crunch. So if you have all your ingredients, let's get ready and let's get started, okay? So if you have your chicken broth, I'd like you to get that heated up right now. So get an extra pan. I'm turning both burners on because I'm also going to use this Dutch oven to build the soup. And this is just a little time saver by heating up the chicken broth so that when you add it to the rest of the ingredients, you're just adding warm broth instead of cold broth or room temp broth. It's going to make this soup come together that much faster. And this is 3 cups of chicken broth. I'm sure you have some leftover chicken broth after your big holiday weekend. I know I always do. So we're getting the broth nice and heated up. And while that happens, I'm gonna start slicing up all the veggies that are gonna be our base for our soup. So I wanna get some butter in the Dutch oven. Just a couple tablespoons. Let's dice up our onion first. So to slice up an onion, this is the root, and we're gonna slice right into it because we want the root to hold the onion together. That way it'll be easier to dice all in one. Then you get rid of the top part. That's a technical term for the onion. And then you wanna take off this thin skin, and usually I take off the first layer under that because sometimes it's kind of green and tough. So I'll just get rid of that at the start. If it's not looking green and tough, just take off the skin on top. You definitely don't want the papery skin in your soup. Okay, so let's get the dicing happening. Sometimes when for Thanksgiving they have all these pre-prepped onions that are already diced for you. Don't tell anybody, but sometimes I buy those. So if you happen to have an extra package, just throw that in. But it's our secret. All right, onion goes into the butter. Let's give it a little stir. Okay, next up, our celery. We'll just slice this in half and then slice it all the way down. Just want little, smaller, bite-sized pieces. This is gonna add a nice little crunch in the soup. Maybe not so much a crunch, just some more texture. We're just looking for some more texture. Right in. Bench scraper makes your life a lot easier too. Grabs more veggies, put them right in. And then give this a stir. And then we got some poblano peppers. That's gonna add a really fun little light heat. They give off a beautiful aroma. It's a nice texture in your soup and a great flavor. So you just want to de-seed it. So we're going to cut off the tops. Just want to get those seeds out. So we're going to grab those. It's not like jalapenos where the seeds really make it that much spicier. I just don't want that texture in the soup. Just grab that right out. And then we'll start slicing into them and then dicing it. Now we're not gonna put this soup in a blender. So you're gonna be able to see all these beautiful veggies in here. So I wanna make sure you can see them. These will get nice and tender as the soup simmers and add a bunch of flavor. Okay, into the soup. Then we're gonna add a little salt and pepper once all the peppers get in. A little salt. And some pepper. And while this sautés, we can slice up our garlic. We just want all these veggies to get nice and tender You want to see the onions get a little translucent. Very pretty. Okay, let's get to our garlic. We have 3 cloves of garlic. Just give them a little smash and then slice right into them. That releases all the garlic flavor when you smash them. It also kind of gives you a wider surface to slice into. It makes it a little bit easier to slice the garlic. And then we'll put that in with the rest of the peppers and the onions and the celery. So just give this a minute or 2 until the garlic becomes fragrant. But you can already smell it. You can already smell that beautiful garlic aroma. Mmm. Okay, let's go ahead and add that broth in. It's nice and warm. You can see it bubbling away, but it's not overly boiling. It's got a nice little simmer happening. So get that in. Okay, now go ahead and grab your mashed potatoes. We're going to talk about those for a second. So, you might be wondering, it's like, I made crazy potatoes this year. I put jalapenos, I put cheddar cheese, I put sour cream, I put cream cheese, I put all kinds of stuff in my mashed potatoes. That's okay. You can put these in here. Now, you can just put creamy butter and milk with salt and pepper mashed potatoes in there, or if you have other flavors in there, it's all gonna be great. Or you could make like a broccoli cheddar cheese if you have cheddar cheese in your mashed potatoes. The mashed potatoes don't have to be just plain old butter and milk and salt and pepper mashed potatoes. You can use any potatoes that you want. And we'll just start putting in, eyeballing a cup at a time. And we'll let these mashed potatoes melt in to the warm broth. That's bigger than a cup. I used to only make shepherd's pie after Thanksgiving with mashed potatoes, if I had them. But mashed potato soup, so good. That looks like about, well, maybe a little bit more. Let's break that down, see if there's enough mashed potatoes in there. Now this is going to melt right in to the warm broth. We're just going to help it along a little bit. We're going to let this come back up to a simmer. And then we're going to let it just simmer away for about 10 minutes before we put the frozen corn in. So if you want to press pause and stir your soup a little bit and go get your frozen corn and your chives for garnish, you can come back here in 10 minutes, okay? Welcome back. Your soup should be simmering beautifully like this. All those flavors are coming together. The mashed potatoes are melting into all the rest of the veggies. So now we're going to add some frozen corn. The corn is just going to thaw in the soup. We have 2 cups here. Give it a little stir. And then here's the important part. You do want to taste this before you're finished seasoning it, because depending on what kind of seasonings are in your mashed potatoes, how seasoned they are, that will tell you how seasoned the soup is. So the only way to know is by tasting it. So we're gonna put a little spoon in there and give it a little taste. And now that the corn's in there, it's cooled off a little bit so I can actually taste it. That's so good. It's so crazy good. I just want to add a little tiny bit of salt and pepper. But wowzy, that is so yummy. It's buttery. It's just that creamy potato. Oh, yeah. All right, let's make our little garnish. We're just gonna chop some chives just to lay on top. There we go. So we've got some chives. We just need a few, just to sprinkle on top. I always love adding freshness to any dish that I can. It just rounds out everything. It's that extra little touch of garnish that I just love. And the corn should have been heated up and not frozen any longer, so I am gonna ladle myself a little bowl and give it a taste. If you're serving it for dinner later, just put that top on, turn it down to low, low, low simmer, and it's perfect for dinner. Oh, look at that. Gorge. And that just backs up with a slight little onion flavor. That's what the chives add, and a little bit of freshness. Oh, this looks really, really good. I mean, there's a lot of flavor in that spoon, and it didn't take us any time at all to make this soup. Oh, it's so good. You got the crunchy corn, the sweetness of the corn, creaminess of the potatoes. You didn't add any more cream, only what's already in your potatoes, if you even have any cream in there. The poblanos add a really, really nice little bite, not any heat. It just adds an extra dimension of flavor. So delicious. Thanks for cooking with me. If you like this recipe, and I'm sure you will, go ahead and bookmark it so you can make it again later. I'll see you next time.
In my experience, if you don't make mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving, somebody's going to complain. So I'm going to show you my classic mashed potatoes and 3 variations just to turn up the volume. But first, I'm going to show you something like mashed potatoes that's even more unique. It's celery root and apple puree. I made it for Thanksgiving a few years ago. Everybody loved it. Got 1 cup of chunks of fennel. You want to cut it and have it flat on the board so you don't end up cutting your fingers off. Not a good thing to do for Thanksgiving. I'm just gonna put the fennel right in. And since this has a really complex flavor, I'm gonna put in 3 golden delicious apples and some Yukon Gold potato, about 8 ounces. Yukon Gold's great, it's got a really great texture. And then the last thing I wanna do is a celery root. This is one of the ugliest looking vegetables, but so delicious. It's also called celeriac. And I did about 2 cups chopped. This is the trick to celery root. Cut off the end and then stand it up before you peel it, and it's really stable. Okay, and then cut it in half. And then cut it in 3/4 inch chunks. Okay, now for some seasoning. 1½ teaspoons of salt. Salt's really important. Really brings out the flavor of all the vegetables and the apples. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Give it a little heat. Give it a big stir. Just gonna cook in the butter for about 5 to 7 minutes until the vegetables and the apples start to soften. I can already smell them. Okay, now I'm gonna add even more flavor. Half a cup of apple cider. Okay, lid on, done. Oh, the vegetables are all done. The celery root and fennel, apples, little potato. Potato gives it a little thickening, which is great. Now I'm just gonna add about 1/4 cup of cream, which is gonna give it a really silky kind of texture, a little thickening. Just put it right in. Turn off the heat, and just put all these vegetables right through the food mill. You can do this in a blender, you can do it in a food processor, but I just find they end up being very smooth, kind of like baby food. This one has a coarse blade. It has different kinds of blades, so it can be smoother or coarser. And I really like the coarsest blade. And then what you do is just turn it. No electricity, just a little hand crank. Isn't that great? It's so elegant and simple. Perfect. Okay. More vegetables. This is a great vegetable to make in advance. All I have to do is reheat it with a little bit of apple cider. And my guests, I think I just whipped it up in the few minutes before they got there. A little more pureeing. Get my exercise for the day. And just, you'll see at the bottom, just make sure you get all of it. I don't want to waste a drop. Put that together and just, you'll see really great texture, wonderful flavors. Just a little taste, make sure it's really good. So delicious. Then, before dinner, all you have to do is spoon the celery root and apple puree into a saucepan, add a little apple cider or water, reheat it slowly over low heat, pour it into a serving dish, just a sprinkle of salt, and it's ready. People are really gonna love that celery root and apple puree. Okay, back to the potatoes. So the potatoes are cooked. Test them with a knife, make sure they're perfectly cooked. And they are. So I'm just gonna drain them. Ooh, nice steam bath. Okay, at this point, basically most people would use a potato masher or a food mill, but I'm gonna do them in an electric mixer, and they come out really creamy and chunky at the same time. So good. I'll put them in the bowl of an electric mixer, turn it on low speed for a few seconds just to break them up. Then slowly add a hot mixture of 1 cup of whole milk and 6 tablespoons of melted butter. This makes the potatoes really creamy. Then I'll add 1/2 cup of sour cream, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Give it a final mix and the potatoes are done. So once you've nailed the classic recipe for mashed potatoes, you can use it for all kinds of incredible variations. Let me tell you about some of mine. Idea 1, add 3 ounces of room temperature white truffle butter to the mashed potatoes. Mix it in, and classic mashed potatoes become truffle mashed potatoes. It's so luxurious. Idea 2, add 1/2 cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and you have Parmesan mashed potatoes, spicy and delicious. Idea 3, into a pan, just add 1/2 cup of garlic cloves to 1/2 cup of olive oil, bring it to a boil, lower the heat, and simmer it for 20 minutes until the garlic is soft and just lightly browned. Then turn off the heat and let it cool. After 20 minutes, add the tender garlic cloves to the mashed potatoes, along with 3 tablespoons of the garlic oil. Mix them in, and wow, really garlicky mashed potatoes. That's 3 variations that everyone will love. But don't forget the classic. It's really good too. I just can't help myself. I have to try it. It is. It's creamy and chunky. You can really taste a little sour cream. So good.